Welcome to Greek 2. In this lecture, I'm going to go from chapter 17 through chapter 21 and just focus on some of the exercises under each chapter. Now, keep in mind, I've already posted videos per week working with other students throughout these exercises, so this is just an extra. I believe the more you can spend time in this book, the more you can work through these exercises, the better it will be for you. Each time you learn a little more, and it sticks. So let's begin. In chapter 17, which is the nouns of the third declension chapter, let's do 4 of these exercises starting on page 122. The first one, which is ho logos sarx egeneto. Ho logos sarx egeneto. Ho logos. We should know this, John 1:1, right? Logos, the word, sarx, flesh. What about this egeneto? Where is it coming from? Well, it's coming from ginomai. Remember ginomai, to become? This is the second aorist middle, okay? Third person singular. Remember, second aorist middle, third person singular, eto. Okay, so he, she, it. But here, of course, we know it is for the word. Keep in mind, this egeneto shows up a lot, as many as 200 times in the Greek New Testaments. This is one you may want to go ahead and memorize and just have it settled, okay, in your mind. So this is the word became flesh. This is a little longer sentence. Number 10, okay? So number 10 is ho basileus eis erketai, eis ten Paulin, ho de grammateus, exerketai pros ten eremon. So, ho basileus, the king. Eis erketai, coming from eis erkomai, means coming into or entering. So eis erketai, eis ten Paulin. He enters into the city, hode, but the scribe ex erketai. So eis, into, and ex, out. That's exit. So exerketai, he departs or leaves from into the desert, leaves into the desert, or goes out into the wilderness. One of the same. So that's that. All right, let's keep moving along. Let's do a couple more in this chapter. The next one is number 15. Ta ethne u genoske to telema kai ten karan tu theou. Ta ethne is the nations. U genoske. Genosko we know. Genosko is to know. Do not. U negates the verb genosko. So this is that negative. Okay. It negates genoske. So the nations do not know ta telema, the will, and dein karen tu theou, the grace of God. The grace of God. Very simple once you know genoske and what's happening with the negative. One more from this chapter 17. Let's do the last one, number 22. It is meta tein anastasin. That should right there kind of trigger. Anastasin, we're talking about the resurrection, right? So meta tein anastasin tu Christu of Thesan ta somata ton hagion. So meta is with or after. Here is functioning as after. Tein anastasin, after the resurrection of Christ, to Christu, of Thesan. Now that's an interesting one. What exactly is happening here with this of thesan? It is an aorist passive of horao. Horao to see. Passive. So the bodies of the Hagion, the saints, okay, the holy ones, were seen. Horao. You find this on page 105 in Dr. Black's book, so worth considering that. Page 105. Right there on the bottom, we're talking about of thesan. Where does it come from? First, aorist passive indicative participle parts, principal parts. The last one there is of thein. I was seen. It comes from horao. It's one of those weird ones. It is also noticed on page 246. This is where all of those parts are listed, and it's one that I regularly consulted. So 246, if you notice right here, and let's see, there it is, right in the middle of 246 is horao, opsomai, edon, eoraka, and ofthein for your aorist passive. Nothing there for the perfect or the middle. So keep this in mind. Appendix 9 in Dr. Black's book, very helpful for this horao, ofthein principal parts. All right, so that's chapter 17. Let's move on to chapter 18. This is where we talked about the adjectives, the pronouns, the numerals of the first and third declensions. Let's go and do some exercises here. Let's go on page 131. We'll do maybe 5 of them. Let's begin with the first one here, which is Pantes gar hemarthon kai husteruntai. Dr. Black gives this word meaning here because it's hard to find that word. So husteruntai, tes doxes tu theou. And now he's using New Testament references. So it should trigger some memory. Some of these verses are very popular, very well known from John, from Romans, and so you should be able to do this one. So let's do this one. Pantes, all. Gar for. Hemarthon, coming from hamartano, right? Hamartano. So hemarthon kai husteruntai. This is where all have sinned and fall short or fallen short of the doxes, coming from doxa, doxes tu theou, of the glory of God. So for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Very simple. Once you know it, it begins to make sense. Main thing to pay attention to, of course, is the hemarton, coming from hamartano, and of course, husteruntai. Let's go to number 5. All right. Number 5, this is a long statement. So it starts with su pesteues, hoti es, heis, estin hotheos, with a semicolon. Now, keep that in mind, because what do we know about semicolon? In Greek, that's the question mark. Okay, so su pesteues, hoti heis. This is not ace. Ace would be into, heis is 1. So this represents 1, number 1. Okay, so keep that in mind. Su pesteues hoti heis estin hotheus? A question. Kalos poies, which is coming from poieo, to do. Kai tai daimonia pisteusen kai frisusin tremble. Of course, we know this reference is coming from James chapter 2, verse 19. So You believe that one, there is God, right? You believe that one, there is, estin is, there is God, question mark. Kalos poios. Kalos is for good or well. You do well. Kaita, even. Okay, this is not end. This is here is functioning as even. Even the demons, pisteusin, believe. Right? This is your third plural. Osa, omen, ete, usin. Same thing here. Pisteus, pisteuo, pisteusin, kai, free, susin. Yeah? So, and tremble. Now, of course, in the English translations, they put an exclamation point over here, but then again, we don't know for sure if there was as an exclamation there, other than the context. Okay? So there you have number 5. Moving along. So let's go to number 10 in this chapter. Number 10. Ha Jesus epen aute, ha gunai megale su he pistis. So let's begin with this. Very simple. We know this is Jesus. Ha Jesus. Epen coming from epon, okay, which is coming from lego, to speak, all right, or to say. So Jesus said to her. How do we know that? That's the feminine. Aute is to her, O woman, ha gunai, O woman, megale su, great is your hepistis, your faith. The very familiar passage from Matthew 15:28. You see how easy it is? Once you understand this right here, the rest is sort of, kind of begins to make sense. And that's how translation is done. If you're expecting, all these paradigms to start showing up and working every step of the way, it's not like that. Language is, of course, a science, but it's also an art. So at some point in time, you begin to piece this together. Now, when it comes to the Greek New Testament, our English memorizations should help us, and they often do. But when you get deeper into learning New Testament Greek, when you get into those fine grammatical issues, that's when it gets a little complicated. When we get into exegetical issues, that's where it gets a little difficult to understand. Are we talking about aspect here, or is it action sort? What exactly is happening? Voice, is it middle? So when it's middle, or is it passive, or what is the force of the middle? That's where it gets a little complicated. But here, as you can see, the answers are not that difficult. It's very simple to understand. Let's do one more, or let's do a couple more. How about that? Let's do number 15. Number 15 is kai semeon. Kai semeon. Semeon, remember our memorization, our vocabulary words help tremendously. By the way, if you are not seriously memorizing the vocabulary words that I'm assigning to you every week, and also pay attention to the vocabulary lists in each of Dr. Black's chapters in this book, you will realize very quickly how important vocabulary is to translating New Testament Greek. I will tell you personally, when I'm translating New Testament Greek, just side translation, most of the time I'm not going, okay, where is this paradigm? Where is it nominative? Is it accusative? I'm not doing that. I'm not that concerned over, is it second person singular, or is it a third plural? No, I'm going by vocabulary. And once vocabulary kicks in, then the rest begin to make sense. So vocabulary is key here. So kai semeon, mega of the. We kind of came to this recently. Remember that? Ento urano, which is coming from Revelation chapter 12, verse 1. Okay, so A great sign, and a great sign, or now a great sign. Semeion is sign, mega, great. Ophthe, what exactly is ophthe? Remember we talked about horao, to see. Ophthe is coming from horao, to see. It is an aorist passive. You find this on page 105 in your in Dr. Black's book, right on the bottom. Ophthe, I was seen. Same thing here from horao. Also found on page 246. Remember that principal chart list that I mentioned to you just a few moments ago? That's where it is. See how this irregular form shows up again and again? So make sure you remember ophthe. Let's do one more in this chapter. So let's do the last one, number 20 of chapter 18. Meta de palun chronon erketai, ha kurios ton dulon ekenon. The verb to look out for is, of course, erketai. Erketai coming from erkomai. All right, it's one of those middle, the passives. So how does it function in this sentence? So let's begin. Meta is with or after, here after. De palun chronon, after a long time. Remember chronon, chronos, time, palun, pole, palu, long, many. After a long time comes the Lord of those servants. Okay? So is this part of Matthew 25:19? Not the whole statement, because I want to still say something about settling the accounts, but that's not included in this Greek sentence. So that's it right here. Okay? So this is number 20 in chapter 18. Let's go to the next chapter, chapter 19, where we encountered contract and liquid verbs. Again, we're going to do, let's do about at least 4 or 5. Let's do about 5 in this chapter. So let's start with the first one here. First one is kai kaleses to anoma autu iesun autos garsos ton laon autu apoton hamarthion auton. So how do we translate this one? And kalesius calls, or you shall call, it's like a future there. You shall call his name, auto onoma, his name, Iesun, Jesus, and you shall call his name Jesus. For, God is for, he will save his people. Laos is people. He shall save his people. Apoton hamarthion, or auton, from there. Okay, from there, it's plural, from their sins. So Matthew 1:21, very familiar passage. The first part of that verse is missing here. So Dr. Black just shows that we can easily translate based on how much we know so far. Let's go to the next one. Let's do number 5. Number 5 is hemes agapomen. Agapao. Remember, agapao is to love. Agapao. Hemes agapomen hoti autos protos agapesen hemas. Now this is a little tricky one. What do we do with agapomen? Okay, so we love. Okay, so at least we know that we love because he first loved us. But let's focus on these two. Agapomen, agape sen. So what is the difference between these two? Okay, if you go to page 134, kind of notice these things so you can take the time to memorize them. Agapomen is coming from this the timao form of these contract and liquid verbs, and so that's what's happening over here. So that's an easy one. That's an easy one. Agapomen is your present active indicative, first person plural, coming from agapao. Present active indicative, first person plural. Let me write that down. Present active indicative, first plural. Well, how about agape sen? What's happening there? You find that on page 136. If you turn the page over, page 136, this is your aorist active indicative, third person singular. So this is aorist active indicative, third singular, also coming from the same agapao. Here's number 10. Haun archereus, erotesen, ton iesun periton matheton autu kai perites didakes autu. So how do we begin? Un is therefore, so kind of like therefore or then. On page 95, Dr. Black talks about this. If you want to turn there just quickly, page 95, very last line of page 95 in the Learn to Read New Testament Greek book. Un is therefore or then post positive, like a suffix. So it is then the high priest asked, erotesen coming from erotao, to ask. So he asked Jesus concerning, peri is concerning his disciples and concerning his teaching. So his and his is the same, matheton, didakes, almost the same, they are the same form, but just different words. So you know this passage, that then the high priest asked, or the high priest then asked Jesus about his disciples and his doctrine. So here's number 15. Hoi un stratiotai, okay, remember soldiers. Hote estaurosan, stauros is the cross. So is coming from the same word family. Ton iesun elabon. Elabon, again, it's a little interesting one right here, coming from lambano, to receive. Okay, lambano is to receive. So let's read that again. Hoi un stratiotai hote estaurosan, ton iesun elabon ta himatia is garment, autu kai epoiesan, poieo is to do, terasa mere, terasa for, tesara is for, mere, so parts. Thesara, 4 parts. So how do we translate this? Then the soldiers, okay, when they had crucified Jesus, elabon, receive or take, can also go with that, took his, since it's an aorist, they took his garments and poieo, to do or make, and made tessara, 4 mere parts. And of course, this is coming from John 19:23. When Jesus was on the cross, they were down there casting dice and dividing up his garments. Kind of fulfillment of prophecy. Let's go to the next one, which is number 20, the second to the last one of this chapter on contract and liquid verbs. So let's do that one. Kai apoktenusin. Okay, apokteno is like to kill. Apoktenusin, auton, kai te trite, which is third. Remember tasara 4, trite, third. Very similar, right? 3, 4. Hemera de ege te setai. Matthew 17:23. Ege te setai. So let's break it down. How do we do this? So kai, as I mentioned to you, apoktenusin is they will kill him, and they will kill him. And the third day, he will be raised up, which is future. And this is coming from eger te setai. Now, one thing I want to point out here is that, and again, this problem, I've seen it year after year and keep forgetting to point it out. There is a missing alphabet here. Should be rho. All right? So egerthesetai. There is no egerthesetai. There is no such word. And egerthesetai is coming from egero. Egero. Egero means to raise up. By the way, that little mistake is in the book as well as in the Kindle version that I have. And so anyways, just don't get confused. There is a rho, there is a R sound there. Agerthesetai is your future passive indicative third person singular of egero, to raise up or raise him. So there you have. And they will kill him, and the third day he will be raised up. That is your contract and liquid verbs chapter. Let's go to chapter 20. Here we come across that big category of participles, which are verbal adjectives. Let's do some exercises. We'll do about 4 in this one. Let's begin with the first one. Number 1. Elten ha Iesus esten Galilean, keruson to evangelion to theou. So, elten. Remember elten coming from your erkomai, to come. All right? So, let's begin with that one. So, how does it work out? Elten ha Iesus, Jesus came, esten Galilean, to Galilee. Keruson, keruso is to preach. Keruson, preaching the gospel of God. Okay? The gospel of God. Preaching the gospel of God. I know it's the kingdom of God in the New Testament, but here it's simply the gospel of God. Let's move on to the next one. We'll do number 5, sort of a long statement coming from the book of Revelation. Here it is. Makarios ha anaginoskon kai hoi akuntes tus logus tes propheteas kai teruntes ta en aute gegramena. So, how do we translate this one? Makarios ha anaginoskon. Anaginoskon, coming from anaginosko, which is to read, right? So blessed is he who reads. This is your present active participle, masculine singular nominative, okay, for anaginosko, coming from ana, ginos, ko, to read. So this is your present active indicative third person singular. Present active participle masculine singular nominative of anaginosko. So blessed is he who reads, and those who hear the words of this prophecy, and Theruntes. Theruntes is coming from Thereo, so to keep. All right, so keep those things that are written. This is gegramena, coming from grapho. Grapho, of course, is to write, but this one is your perfect. Remember the reduplication happening here. Gegramena, which is present middle participle, neuter accusative plural of grapho. So, which are written in it. Remember verbal adjectives? That's what we have here. It's a verb. Grapho is to write, but here it's functioning as a participle, but it's a perfect middle participle. Okay, I can write that down over here. The perfect middle participle, coming from grapho. Let's go to number 10, and then we'll also do number 13. But let's go to number 10 next, which is kai opsontai, ton huion, tu anthropou erchomenon, epiton nephelon, tu uranu. Kai opsontai. Now, immediately, this one is going to be the one that'll give you some trouble. Okay, where is it coming from? It's coming from, yep, you guessed it, horao, to see. It's coming from horao, to see. It is here is functioning as a future middle indicative on tai, third person plural. Okay, so you find this on page 138 in case you want to go back and look at that. Right in the middle, horao, I see the deponent. Of course, as you know, I don't believe in the deponents, but the future opsomai. So how do we translate this? Well, let's go back to our horao. Horao is to see. So, and it's a third plural, and they will see the Son of Man, erchomenon, right? Erchomenon, here we have once again erchomai, your present middle participle, right? This, by the way, this chapter is on participles, so this should be a quick clue that these are going to be participles. So this is your present middle participle, accusative masculine singular of erchomai. Erchomai, if you remember this one, is to come, right? But here it is the participle. So, and they will see the Son of Man coming upon the clouds of heaven. Okay, that's very easy. So keep that in mind. Again, participle. Participle is the key to remember. Participle. Here we're actually focused on the present middle participle, coming from erchomai. One more in this chapter. Let's go to the last one, which is number 13. Dikaio tentes. Dikaio tentes un ek pisteuos, erenein ekhomen, pros ton theon Dia tu kuriu hemon Iesu Christu. Now, this is a little complicated, but not too bad. You cannot get intimidated by this one. The big one, of course, starts out with this delta in front of us, dikaiothentes. Dikaiothentes is coming from dikaio. Dikaio is to justify, right? Or, here is going to be, right? This is going to be your aorist passive participle, masculine plural nominative. Okay, so aorist passive participle. Let me write this down so this may help you. Aorist passive participle, nominative, plural. Okay, a nominative plural, masculine. Dikaio, to justify. So, of course, you should know by now, is therefore. Therefore, having been justified. Remember, aorist passive, having been. Remember the past, the distance. Go back and watch the video on aspect. We talked about this plenty. Therefore, having been justified by faith, we have ekomen, we have peace, ekomen. We have peace. Eko is to have. We have peace with God. Through our Lord Jesus Christ. The main hindrance is, of course, the dikaiothentes. If you get the dikaiothentes right, and make sure you get this right, this is coming from echo, right? Echo is to have. This has got nothing to do with erkomai. Remember, it's a whole different word. Sometimes students make mistakes because they get so focused on these certain words because they see them again and again in exercises. All of a sudden, they see one that has certain alphabets similar, and they make a mistake. So don't make that mistake. This is echo. This is not erkomai. Erkomai is to come. Echo is to have. So ekomen is to have. We have, right? O is a. Amen ete usen. This is your first person plural to have. That's what's happening here with echo. That's your 13. Let's move on to the last chapter we're going to focus on in this review of these exercises is chapter 21 on the verbal nouns. Verbal adjectives, participles. Verbal nouns, infinitives. They carry the attributes of both the verbs and the nouns, usually translated as to something, to something. Let's begin with the first one. Pisteuete, you should know this by now, pisteuo, to believe. Pisteuete, hati dunamai, tuta poiesai. Why did I put that poiesai? Is because semicolon is your question mark. So, do you believe that I am able this to do? To do this. Right? To do this. So, keep that in mind. Something else I want to point out before we move on. By the way, the poiesai is your aorist active. Your aorist active infinitive coming from poieo, which is to do. I want to focus on this for a second. Pisteuete. Pisteuo, I believe. O is a Amen ete usen. This is your second person plural. I would say, kind of using a southern slang here, do y'all believe? Do y'all believe that I'm able to do this? Do y'all believe? It's the second plural. He's not talking to one person, he's talking to the whole group. And if you look at the context of Matthew 9:28, he's talking to the whole group. Moving along. Let's do number 5. Mele. Mele gar Herodes. You should know that, right? Mele gar Herodes zeten ta paidion to apollusai. Auto. So how do we translate this? Mele. Mele is coming from melo, to be about. To be about to. Okay. Herodes, we know, Herod. Zetein, here you have this infinitive for zeteo. Zeteo is to seek. Topaidion, to the child. To apollesai, coming from apollumi, aorist active infinitive. So apollesai, aorist active infinitive from apollumi. Okay, from apollumi. So apollumi is, by the way, is to destroy. You know, that's apocalyptic, all the destruction. So how do we translate this? For Herod is about to will seek to destroy, or the young child to destroy him, auto him, to destroy. So apollesai is coming from apollumi, destruction, to destroy. So it's a little complicated, but once you get zetain, again, it's an infinitive. Mele, to be about to. Apollusai, aorist active infinitive from apollumi. Those me verbs. By the way, me verbs are still coming, and you're going to find them in chapter... the last chapter, actually, chapter 25, and page 195 in the vocabulary. Right there, third from under the me verbs is apollumi, which is I destroy. So this is I destroy, so to destroy. Okay, so there you have number 5. Let's do one more. Let's do number 10. Number 10 is Eilthen. You should know Eilthen by now, coming from Eilthon, which is connected to erkomai, to come. So Eilthen, ek ton peraton, tes geis, akusai, tain sophion, solomonos. Now, some words are already familiar to us, right? This looks too much like Solomon to ignore it. Let's just go and put that down as Solomon. What else is familiar? Of course, Dr. Black gives us ens, tes geis, coming from ge, which is earth. Right? That's where the Gaia would come, worshipping the earth. Ge is earth. Akusai, of course, akuo, to hear. That's one that you cannot miss. So we got some of these words. Eilthen, of course, coming from erkomai, to come. What else can be fixed up here before we start translating it? I think basically this is it. So let's look at it. First one is your aorist active indicative, third singular of erkomai. And this can be he or she or it. If you read the context, who came from the ends of the earth to learn about Solomon's wisdom? It was the Queen of Sheba. So from context, we know it's the she we're talking about, right? So how do we translate this? For she came, right? She came from the ends of the earth, gaze earth, to here. This is your infinitive, right? Akusai is your aorist active infinitive. Coming from akuo to here. To here, Sophion. So that's easy. Remember Hagia Sophia in Istanbul, right? Holy wisdom. So Hagia is Holy Sophion, wisdom of Solomon. For she came from the ends of the earth to hear, infinitive, to hear the wisdom of Solomon. So there is your translation for one more of these infinitives. And I hope these exercises help you. And this is how you translate them. You got to spend time with them, read them back and forth, compare them. Open up your Bible and translate them in your practice time and see how well you do it. And then slowly you will gain confidence. Just remember this, a lot has to do with confidence. I know even personally, there was a long time before I had the confidence. I knew the material, but I was like, I'm afraid of making a mistake. I think I'm going to translate this wrong. I don't think I know this paradigm enough. I don't think I know this category. Sometimes certain chapters were like a blur, like a fog. And so you have to gain the confidence to say, you know what? I may make the mistake. I may make plenty of mistakes, but I'm going to step forward and try this. And in that stepping forward, you're going to learn more and more and more. And with learning more, your confidence is going to rise. And when your confidence is up, what you'll find is that previously daunting chapters and categories and grammatical categories will become easier to understand. You go, oh, I get it. It's not that complicated. I get it. And so hopefully these exercises will help you and have helped you. Also watch the other videos that are on the portal where I'm going over those exercises with other students. They should also help you master and learn more about New Testament Greek.